Let's go to Washington, though. Standing by to join us, Jonathan Schanzer, VP of Research at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. We speak to the agency group now and then about these issues. And Jonathan, I want to get your take on what we're seeing in the United Kingdom. What do you think this is an indication of in terms of what British intelligence, likely in conjunction with American intelligence, are seeing and hearing?
Well, I think it's fairly clear at this point that they have seen some chatter, some intelligence that has given them an indication that an attack may be imminent. They may not have specific ideas of when that attack might take place or where it might take place, but I think they're getting a sense that there is a greater threat than previously believed. I think that this is probably the likely result of an increased collection of intelligence from ISIS now that the threat has metastasized and has clearly jarred Western intelligence agencies, both in Europe and the United States.
Of course, the big concern here for the UK and for the United States, North America, Europe, is that these terror attacks might happen there as opposed to happening in Syria and in northern Iraq. When you hear that, the British are saying there are some 500 British citizens who have now left to join this jihadi cause. There are Americans, Canadians. We know this is a major issue here. That sort of escalates this to a whole new level.
Well, that's right. First of all, there are a number of people, hundreds of people who've left the United States, Canada, and Europe, as you've mentioned. The question is who has sent them? What kind of recruitment has been taking place here in the West? What are the logistical pipelines to get them out into Syria and Iraq? All of these things are likely still in place here, which means that there is terror infrastructure in the West that can be used not just for sending terrorists abroad, but for attacks at home. And that's, I think, what has shifted the thinking.
Let's talk about what we heard from the president this week, if we can. I want you to weigh in on this. A very cautious approach. We've seen that time and again from Barack Obama. Can the United States afford to take that slower approach, given what we're seeing in Syria, given the extreme violence and some of the threats that they pose, not only to Iraq, Syria, but elsewhere?
Look, I think, first of all, it should be noted that we've been aware of the ISIS or ISIL threat for quite some time. This has been a splinter group from al-Qaeda. It has become a heck of a lot nastier as the Syrian civil war has dragged on. We have not made any major decisions to attack. And by the way, we've decided to sit out of the Syrian civil war entirely, allowing for these groups to get more violent and more gruesome in their approach. And so I think that the foot dragging has really come back to bite us. And it is now a question of whether we're willing to take some additional steps. I think the Prime Minister of Britain was correct in saying that it is not only a military solution that is going to help bring this to an end, but certainly it has to be part of it. And I think you're seeing a reticence on the part of the president to get involved in Syria because already he has determined that it was not a U.S. interest. This will seem like flip-flopping in the end, and I think that has been one of the major impediments to this decision-making process.
The airstrikes that began 3 weeks ago in northern Iraq against the Islamic State have certainly proved effective, at least temporarily, at containing the threat in that country. How long do you think it'll be, or will we see U.S. strikes perhaps backed up by the U.K. in Syria itself?
Well, look, that's exactly what we're talking about right now, is this sort of longer-term strategy that the president says he still does not have. What he's basically saying is he's not sure he's willing to commit to a strategy that would include both Iraq and Syria. In my view, it has to be done in that way. ISIS does not see the border between Iraq and Syria. They see themselves all as one country. We would be well advised to look at that front in the same way. And then I think if those attacks begin, you could begin to weaken ISIS on its base near the Turkish border and perhaps other places as well.
Jonathan Schanzer with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Good to have you on, sir. Thank you for this.
My pleasure.